Hey everyone, welcome to the show, My So-Called Fabulous. I'm Tiffany. Welcome everyone. And not only do I try to help you and teach, but I also try to inspire. And doing that, I need to bring on people and want to bring on people that are inspirational. And we've done that today. Surviving cancer. I can't even begin. I watched my mom lose her life to cancer, and it was heartbreaking. But when you find someone like Mr. Marc Semmelmann that has survived, he's about to say it, this cancer, that he's the one that survived it. So we're going to dig into that. So welcome to the show, Marc.
Good to be here.
It is so great to see you. Okay, you in 2010, you found out, you heard the C word. You heard the C word. Tell me the name of the cancer because I can't say it.
Dedifferentiated chondrosarcoma.
I mean, that's a lot.
Don't ask me to spell it.
Don't not spell it. I mean, I have it as an acronym. Thank goodness Google acronym with a DDCS, so I can certainly
know we had one.
Yes, acronym right there. You said the doctors told you not to go on Google. Well, I've been on Google for about a week now. So let's back up. You went to UT. I'm not going to hold that against you. You played football at UT. You a healthy guy, fit, 3 children, your fabulous wife, Susan. What happened?
Well, I'm coaching my daughter's little league basketball team. I didn't like the way they were doing a drill, so I jump out into the drill. This is how you do it. And I get up the next morning, and I'm got a little pain going on. I thought, well, I kind of maybe overdid it a little bit. And it progressively got worse and worse from the point where Susan kicked me out of the bed, said, you're so restless, I can't sleep, so go sleep somewhere else. So I moved to the couch.
Right.
I couldn't get comfortable on the couch either. I was there a couple of weeks, and then I moved to the floor. And I'm sleeping on the floor in front of the TV.
Thinking back pain.
Thinking it was back pain the whole time. And I never got better. I went to physical therapy, saw a chiropractor, saw orthopedic, saw pain management, and they were all back-related items. And one time I'm coming out of therapy, and the therapist says, hey, there's a new orthopedic surgeon across the street. You might go check him out. So I walked in, and he did an x-ray. Nobody had taken an x-ray at this point. It was all MRIs and whatnot. And he says, hey, you've got some distortion on your femoral head. I'm going to send you back across the street so you can do an MRI. Well, we'd looked at my back. Now they're looking at my hip. And by the time I finished that, the tech that I knew in town pulls me out of the MRI machine, and he's kind of like, this isn't good. I could tell by his face it wasn't good. And his name is Mark also. I said, what's the deal? Can't tell you. You need to go back across the street, and the doctor will tell you everything that's going on.
Oh. So
I go back across the street, and he says, you've got this big mass on your pelvis. I'm going to send you back across the street again for a biopsy. And this is the Friday before Memorial Weekend. We've got a big party out at the lake, and there's a ton of people showing up, and I've got to wait till Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever the biopsy is going to come back to find out. So it's kind of heavy on your mind that whole weekend. Turns out it was a chondrosarcoma, right? So it's in the joint of my hip, which is what was causing so much problem. And had surgery to remove it in 2010. And they obviously take it out, and then they go biopsy that. And they came back and said, it's not what we thought. This is a dedifferentiated chondrosarcoma. And we're going to have to do chemo, which is, they weren't originally planning to do chemo.
They thought they could just surgically remove it, right?
And then I'd be fine. Well, be fine. Let me describe what fine is. It was a 19-hour surgery.
What?
Yeah. I can't imagine being the surgeon to do it. And I've got a shirt on here, and if I didn't, I'd show you. It's long. So basically, they took out half of my pelvis, pitched it in the trash can, and gave me somebody else's pelvis, and then wired it all together, and a hip replacement and all this other stuff at the same time. So they described it to me, if you took a coffee can, and the big coffee can, and put it through your entire body where that tumor was, all the material, all the skin, the muscle, the ligaments, everything in there is going in the trash can.
Oh.
So funny story is they took from right down the middle, there's a ligament in your abdomen. So they took part of that and then a certain amount of muscle. So I've got a zipper from here to here. that they stuffed down to pack the cavity so that my intestines and everything wouldn't just kind of fall out the backside.
Oh, for the love.
Right? So I've got this really interesting scar here for that.
War wound, literally.
Yeah, pretty much a war wound.
Mm-hmm.
But so before I go into the surgery, they give you the purple pen.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're going to write somewhere. This is the leg you're operating on, so the doctor doesn't screw up when they get in there.
Yeah.
So the plastic surgeon that was doing this part, I said, Dr. Reese, leave me a 6-pack of abs. Now, I've never had a 6-pack before, but I did after that.
You're kidding.
Shrunk me up and tightened me up. It looked like I'd had a tummy tuck or something.
There's something good that came out of that other than your wife, right? For sure. So that was was that the original surgery, or was that was the
first one?
Okay. So they did the biopsy, found it, and please excuse I've told people I'm not a physician. They did a biopsy. Was it in the hip or on top the tumor? Was it inside the bone or outside the bone?
It was outside the bone.
Outside the bone.
Right. On the cartilage. So this chondrosarcoma is the bone cancer on the cartilage, and it originates in the cartilage.
Okay. So they got it. Was that the surgery? But you had more surgeries, I'm sure, after that.
Well, yes and no. So the first femoral head they put in was too small for the socket.
Good grief.
So by the time 6 weeks roll around and I've been immobilized completely, by the time I'm able to get up and start to ambulate, my leg just fell out.
Mm-mm.
And so it was not in the socket. So we went back in for a second surgery to change out the socket to make it bigger so that it would fit.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that was the second surgery. Third surgery, I was on a construction site here in Fort Worth and just stepped up on a curb. Wasn't any big deal. And my right leg kind of twisted, and I had a spiral fracture in that, in the thigh bone. Is that the
femur?
Femur. And so now I'm in a little bit of a panic. I'm in so much pain. That's one of the most painful things I've ever been through in my life was a femur fracture.
Yeah.
So they load me up in the car, drug me up a bunch, drive me down to Houston, and call the doctor on the way and says, we don't have any beds. We can't get you in. And she just says, just go through the ER and I'll figure it out. This is on a Thursday. Friday morning, she rolls me into the OR again, and I go do this all over again, another hip replacement.
Oh, my God.
So that was the third time. I think that's it.
That's it. Unlock style clarity like never before with the help of the SWB Agency, founded by stylist Bonnie Smith. They offer services both in person and online using their fully virtual platform. Here you learn to love your wardrobe again. Develop your style and shop curated pieces from your very own stylist. I've used the SWB Agency for years, and I cannot describe how great it is to have fully styled outfits. Available and ready in a snap. For more information, visit www.theswbagency.com. Again, that's www.theswbagency.com. Link is also included in the show notes. After the first surgery, what happened? I mean,
Well, I rolled in at 240 pounds. I was immobilized for 6 weeks for the bones to heal as best they could. And I started chemo probably a month after that. And the doctor walks in and he says, Mark, you need to get your affairs in order because you're probably not going to be here in 6 months.
Mm-mm.
And he was talking about all your wills and you told everybody bye in your family and you're getting it's like your last will and testament. Turns out at the time, he wouldn't tell me any of the statistics, survival rate or anything like that. We're just going to have a positive attitude. You put faith in whoever you put your faith into. And if you've got a good support group, your family and friends, then you're more likely to have a better outcome. Well, he'd already told me the outcome wasn't going to be good.
Yes.
So what outcome how much worse could it be? Well, I had a great family and a great support group. I've got a lot of faith. And I think that there's a great story in the middle of that. And so I was going to let the doctors do what the doctors do. And I had always said, if I ever got cancer, I wasn't going to do chemo. I was just going to go. 'Cause
Really?
I've seen what it's done to people
Sure.
and how bad.
Yeah.
So I went in at 240 pounds and coming in at 186.
Yeah.
And that was skin and bones for me.
For sure. Because you're what? How tall are you? You're
6'3".
Yeah. I mean, you're a big guy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to shrivel up and die
No.
because of the chemo. So I had laying in bed one night, a couple nights after this, and I'm having a serious argument with God. Yeah. And telling him, I'm too young for this. I got responsibilities. I got a wife and 3 kids that I got to take care of, and at least get them to the point where they can be on their own. And he and I are not in a good place at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm angry. My blood pressure's up. My face is red. It's probably 2:00 in the morning when I'm having this argument with God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the middle of this argument, just like that, God didn't talk to me. I didn't hear words. I didn't hear anything, but I felt his presence to say, and it was like, I got this. Don't worry about it.
Really?
And from that point on, I never thought about it again. I mean, I can't say I didn't have any doubts because I did, but I felt like I'd given it away and it was in somebody else's hands and I was going to be fine.
Right.
And so if you asked me, I was going to be fine. Well, the doctor would never tell me statistics. We're just going to have a good attitude. Great.
Right.
That doesn't always work, right?
I want to hear that sometimes.
So I go back at 1 year and this was a whole year's worth of chemo that I had gone through. I'll go back at probably the year anniversary, and I'm beating him up for statistics. So we're not going to talk about that. Second year, I do the same thing, and he finally says, all right, here's the deal. You're the first one that I've had, or the first documented that hasn't had a reoccurrence in the first 6 months. So typically this type of thing would spit off another mass somewhere, and they would just start taking out your organs because it would be in your organ. That organ's gone and that organ's gone until you don't have anything left to go to take out. So at year 3, maybe it was 4, he says, I thought I was going to go from a 0% success rate to a 20% success rate because of the recipe that he used on me. And so far at year 3 or 4, that hasn't happened yet. So it's, I never got, he never said you're the only one, but he said I was going to go from 0 to 20 with you. And at year 5, I still don't have another survivor. So, but that's been 2010. I don't know
right.
If somebody's happened since then, but.
So do doctors, do you think that doctors typically tell you statistics or not? But telling you to get your affairs in order,
right,
was the writing on the wall.
I think they give you worst case scenario. I don't know, from legal ramifications or whatever, but they're going to present you the worst case scenario, and it doesn't always turn out to be the worst case scenario. But I think sometimes that really plays in your mind about doom and gloom. Yeah. And so I appreciated him we're just going to have a good attitude about this. You're going to surround yourself with your family and your friends and whatever faith you've got, and do the best we can to survive.
So, Mark, I don't tell everyone this now, I'm telling the world, but I've watched my mother just, MD Anderson, it was brutal watching her, and they didn't have a cure, and the same thing, and shriveled to nothing, and at the end just going, okay, it's time. But I've always said I just didn't want to do what you went through, and I want you to talk about that. But having a good attitude, I do, something so frivolous of something's happened with your health. Just have a great attitude. Oh,
how do you do that?
Sure. And have your faith, but it worked for you.
Well, I've always been a positive person. Okay. A positive attitude. And all this has taken place, and I went to learn to try to speak and inspire other people. And part of my story is I talk about grace. Mm-hmm. It's not what you think grace is. It talks about giving, talks about receiving, talks about your attitude, your confidence, and your expectations. And so it's not the grace like most people would think. And the more that I gave away, the more that I would receive back in kind. And that's played out many, many times over my lifetime. Right. I want to give it away. I'm going to give away my time. There's a story that talks about if you don't have something, if you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough, give it away. Mm-hmm. And you give away your time, and all of a sudden you find out that you have made more time somehow or another. You don't have enough money. You gave away what you do have, and you got more money back in return. I just think it's a universal law of the universe. Right, right. And it's played out time and time again in my life. And it's kind of funny how that attitude, that positive attitude, now, I don't know how you make it. I don't know if God just makes you have an attitude, a positive attitude, and some people are negative Nellies. So I don't know. I've been blessed with the glasses always half full in my world.
That's great. That is great. So when you started the treatments, because you were at MD Anderson, which God bless them, the work that they do. When you started the treatments, what does the treatment look like?
I had a catheter in my chest here. I'm sorry. It was I had one in my neck. I had one inside my arm here. And so this was in July. There's a funny story too. I had gone to a conference in May of the following year. So I'd gone 9 months on chemo and I was still hairless. And I go to this conference in Florida and I wore a tattoo sleeve from, my wrist up here, and you got this bald guy walking around, and all of a sudden he's got these tattoos on, and I have these guys that I'd had acquaintances with prior that I was meeting at the conference, but they hadn't seen me since I had lost all my hair, and they didn't know I had tattoos.
Newfound tattoos.
Yeah, and so Susan and I wander out of the pool and sit down in a chair, and these guys are looking and going, and I'm talking to one of their buddies, and they go, "Oh my gosh, who's that dude?" Or I'm kind of, it's kind of scary. And anyway, because of the tattoo, but you couldn't tell that from that distance that it wasn't a real tattoo.
Right,
so,
right.
But I took the chemo through the IV here in my arm. They would have given me they call it a portacath in your chest, but they said this red devil is so bad that if you're sleeping at night and it's in the drip and it comes out, it'll third-degree burn on your skin. So I'm thinking, well, if it's third-degree burn on my skin, what's it doing on the inside?
Inside.
Yeah. So just kill it all. I don't care. Just get rid of it all.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was tough. I would go in. I'd have a 24-hour drip. Theoretically, I would 2 days to recover. Then I'd come home, and every 21 days, I'd be back in the hospital. But I never got out of the hospital. It was always 10 days after the drip. And, you were to the point where the first couple of days you could talk, everything was great. And then it was downhill from there. And by that 10th day, they were just wheeling me home to put me in a bed because you couldn't eat, you couldn't drink, you couldn't do anything. And then at about the 18th day, you start to wake up a little bit and you can talk and have conversation. Well, then 21st day, you're going back to the hospital. So by the time I started to recover, I'm going back to start all over again. So this was a never-ending cycle for 9 months. That was a great diet, great weight loss program.
Great diet. So were you ever just angry? I mean, I know you had a fight with God that night, but were you just ever like, forget this? I mean, no.
Nope. After that fight, the peace that I had come over me, I had doubts like anybody else would, but I kept the same attitude and I was going to survive. I had a wife and 3 kids I still had to fight for, right? So my oldest daughter got married this summer, and that was part of the toast. There's a reason to fight, and you've got a wife and kids, and those are my special people. So there's a reason why I'm still here, to make sure I raise those kids and take care of my wife in the process.
Exactly.
Though they're on their own now, they don't need me anymore.
Right.
But back then they were, 10 to 9 to 13 years old.
Right. 3 girls.
Two girls and a boy.
2 girls and a boy. Goodness gracious. And what people, because I watched my dad go through this with my mother, the caretakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just.
See, you're going to do another whole other podcast with my wife, because I think it's harder on the caretaker than it is on the patient. We're just trying to survive. We have one focus in our life. Well, bless her heart, she's still trying to raise 3 kids, trying to keep a job, trying to keep the house going, and she's gone from instant partner in me to now I'm absent.
Right.
And I would equate that to the death of a loved one, and now she's got to pick up the pieces and roll on with it. And I remember she called one night at the hospital and just in tears and just about ready to break down, I can't take this anymore. And I'm like, I'm getting frustrated because I don't know what to tell her, because I can't fix anything.
No.
And I told her, says, you've got to buck up. So you write that down. So the next time you have a conversation with her, ask her about what bucking up means.
Mm-hmm.
And she, we got in a big fight. She was mad at me for that. You can't tell me that. Buck up. And but there's a long story behind that. And that was provided her some clarity and realization that I may not be here. And I got to figure out how to live without him anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've seen it firsthand, just how difficult it is. Yeah. I mean, not negating at all the cancer victim, of course.
Sure.
The caretakers, and, you just feel helpless.
Her hair was falling out too, and clumps, just from the stress. And she lost weight like I did, but she wasn't a cancer, but it was just the stress
of what it does
and what goes on with the caregiver. So it's tough.
So your doctor, this is a very rare form of cancer. Is that right? Is
Correct.
It rare? Is that his specialty?
Yes.
Wow.
So I asked him when he wouldn't give me statistics. So how many cases do you have of this type of cancer? And he says, well, we've got well over 400 documented cases. And I'm thinking in my head going, 400 in the world. And he specializes in this. So he's seen it in his brother. He was from India. He's seen it in all over the parts of the country. And so 400 cases, that's not enough of a statistical sample size for me, but that just tells you the rarity that it is. Wow. They just don't have the cure for it.
Mark, is it genetic? Is it environmental? Do we know?
They don't have an answer for that either. I couldn't tell you. I tried to be healthy. I ate right. I might drink a little too much on occasion, but I don't.
Just we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what's so
They can't pinpoint where it comes from or where it starts or why, and that's part of the problem.
Does cancer run in your family?
I lost my mother to brain cancer, and she had a number of surgeries.
Right.
I hope that's not me.
It's okay.
To remove the cancer that came over and over for her.
Right.
And we lost her in 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Wow. That's about when my mom, my mom had the attitude that you have. I'm going to beat this.
Yeah.
Beat this. And I never forget her going into MD Anderson. My sister was with her. And she's like, let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, lost my size, but lost down probably 60, 70 pounds. And just like, let's go. And they're like, we can't. We can't.
Now it's a game.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to win.
Yeah.
So if it's a football game, a basketball game, a baseball game, you're just going to buckle down and play.
Yeah.
And you're going to win.
And I have to hand it to her. She's like, I'm going to be part of that finds a cure, but 4 years, that just.
It's tough.
But the doctor's there. So the doctor, that's his specialty. That's what he does. I was wondering because I read in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram in your article, July 2023, talking about your doctor that had a recipe for this.
Right.
And he just threw everything at you. Is that a decision you make together? Or you're just like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, so.
Well, at that point, I just put my faith in the doctor, too. Mm-hmm. And he treats this, and he has treated it 10, 15, 30 different ways and never had a good outcome. And so his comment, this typically occurs in older people, and he says, you're younger, you're in way better health, you've got a good attitude and all this other stuff that maybe there's a different elixir that I can try. And so Red Devil's a fairly common chemo, but he had another two other drugs that he mixed into that concoction.
Geesh.
But he attributes part of that to the health that I was in before all this happened, that I was able to last longer than his other patients were with the chemo. So if I went 9 months in the chemo, most folks would make it 3 to 6 months before they would waste away to nothing. So he felt like I was in good enough shape that I could tolerate it.
Exactly.
Longer. He says, we're going to go as long as we can.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home one night, flew back from Houston, and I'll tell you about the service in Decatur that did that for me, and had a friend of mine that came and I couldn't get out of the airplane. He had to physically pick me up and put me in the car in the front seat of the truck. And I'm driving home, and I'm telling Susan, says, I'm spent. I can't do this anymore. So we called the doctor the next day, and he says, well, I've about killed you, so I think that's a reasonable request. And We were 9 months into it, and he hadn't seen the reoccurrences yet, so he thought maybe there was some hope on the other side. And I never went back.
Never went back.
Never went back to the chemo.
You didn't?
Yeah, I was every month to the doctor for tests and stuff for first 2 years, but
and it did it. It worked.
Yeah,
it worked. Look at you guys. If you're on YouTube, take a look at Mark. I mean, it worked. You just stopped. So you made the decision. I'm just done.
Well, if he'd have kept on going, I'd have died.
Yes.
So I said, I don't want to die. I think I'm fine. I'm not. Leave me alone. Quit.
It was affecting your kidneys. Now, what's your new normal? You were telling me earlier about your new normal.
So, well, I can't run. I can't jump. I can't do any of the athletic things that I used to do. So you have to change your your attitude about what it is that you do.
Right.
And so you can't snow ski. And I told the orthopedic doctor, which is not the chemo guy, I'm going snow skiing at Christmas. She goes, you're not going. It's a her. She goes, you're not going snow skiing. Because if you tear that up, I'm not going to fix it. You're just going to have to live with the way it is. I'm going snow skiing. So we go snow skiing, and I get in a chair, a sitting ski is what they call it, but you snow ski in a chair. Right. And you've seen the Wounded Warriors, and these all kinds of guys riding these chairs. So I had freedom to go snow ski again. And it's cool. My kids couldn't catch me. You're going too fast, Dad. Slow down. So
that's great.
It was a neat experience, but that's a new normal. So I'm skiing in a chair. I don't have the competitive abilities in basketball or jogging or whatever it may be. Not that I was a big jogger, but so I decided I was going to start to learn how to fly.
Yeah.
And then that became mental gymnastics. That became my physical activity, and it's a physical activity, but mentally it was the challenge, and that I had to replace some of the physical activities that I had done in the past.
Right. And you mentioned earlier Raquel's Wings, is it?
Right.
That was taking you, because 5 hours to MD Anderson down.
That's a tough drive.
35 to 45.
You've done it.
Yes, so 45 is a long, and especially when you're sick. There is a nonprofit that now you are very involved that helped you along the way. Can you tell us about that?
So I didn't even know this thing existed in Decatur.
Why would you, right?
And somebody at church says, hey, you need to go out to the airport because they've got free angel flights, for lack of a better word. That's kind of the area that they deal in. And they'll fly you back and forth to Houston. So Susan goes out and finds out all the information. And sure enough, I was already down there. So they brought her and the kids down. And then every month when I would come back, they'd come pick me up, bring me back. Then they'd take me back for the appointment. Free of charge.
Free of charge.
Don't charge the patients anything, or their family. Wouldn't take any of my money. And so we had to get creative in how we could figure out how to fund some of his fuel, that it's, they're volunteer pilots with their own planes. They pay for the gas, and the gas isn't cheap in an airplane. Right now it's $6 a gallon.
Exactly.
So they were going back and forth, just burning the fuel, picking me up, dragging me back and forth. And I got out. He wouldn't take my money. So I volunteered to help. A fundraiser, they have a bicycle rally every year in September. And so I'll at least volunteer, and I can help that and give back in that way. And he would wear me out. Mark, you got to learn to fly. You got to learn to fly. And I said, I'm the kind of guy that just wants to put the key in and go. I don't want to fly. And the lady that was in charge of the bike rally says, Mark, why don't you come fly with me one time? Because Fabio's like a nervous cat. Fabio's the founder of Raquel's Wings, but he's always tinkering with something in the airplane. There's always something to tinker with. And I said, that's just too much for me. So we get in her plane. She takes off, pushes a couple buttons and crosses her arms. Says, now where do you want to go? And I was like, it's on autopilot. I'm going, oh my gosh.
Oh no. Fabio
had never flown with autopilot. I had no clue. I mean, I knew it existed, but I just didn't know how easy it made life. And so then that became my goal. And I had one discovery flight that I actually took off the very first time with the instructor in the plane, and I was hooked. And it was freedom. So I can remember I couldn't drive. I was always in a wheelchair. They were rolling me around all the time. And when I finally had enough stamina to drive, I took the kids to school every day from that point on, because that was freedom to me instead of being bed bound or wheelchair bound. And the airplane's kind of the same thing. It's freedom. Wow. And it was cool. And I still fly today. So now I'm flying cancer patients back and forth to Houston to give back for those that gave to me. And that goes back to the giving and the receiving.
It does.
I received a ton of blessings from those people. And
I mean,
now I'm going to play it forward.
Right. And giving back. And we're going to have this in the show notes, because I guarantee you there's people that do not understand and know that there's that kind of help, because it's like flying Susan and the kids down for you.
Right.
Just them being in the car for 5 hours at least with the traffic.
That's a brutal drive. There's not a whole lot of prettiness between here and Houston.
No, not at all. So the nonprofit, do you just apply to, if you're a cancer patient, you just contact, and we're going to have this in the show notes.
Yeah, super simple. They've got a website, Raquel's Wings for Life, .com.org, whatever, rwfl.org, whatever it is. And they've got a place in there for patients. You can fill out some paperwork. You got to get a doctor's release that you can fly.
Oh, yeah.
And it's simple as that. Then you've got a point of contact there, and you just, here's my schedule, here's when I'm going.
Wow.
And so it started out just in Wise County, and that's pretty much what Fabio caters to. Mm-hmm. But we've taken people in Tarrant County and Dallas County and Collin County and Jack County and Montague. So they're from all over.
Wow. That's amazing. And you're giving back.
Yeah.
And you're talking to these people that really need hope.
So that's the other beautiful thing. I feel like on that flight, you're able to have some conversation with either the caregiver or even the patient and provide them some hope, because I'm still here. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
And so there's some positive besides the flight that's good. I feel like I can give them a little hope and inspiration.
Right. I'm just not sure how many people, I don't know, but I want to know, how many people have that attitude and find that attitude and have that deep conversation with their God. I don't know, because that is amazing.
Well, I don't know if it's that person's made that way, or if you can be trained. Yeah. I mean, your mind's like a muscle in any other part of your body, and you can train your mind to do certain things. And so I've got to believe that you have the willpower that you can do it.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, your story is absolutely amazing. And I'm just so blessed to have you on and share, because people need to hear this, because you're a story of inspiration, hope, and then the nonprofit that you're involved. Right. So I thank you so much.
It's a great day to be alive.
It is. It is. And you are cancer-free.
Still cancer-free. Knock on wood.
Yes. Yeah. And how often do you go back for checkups?
I quit.
You did?
My dad's beat me up now. Said, you need to come back for another checkup. It's probably been 2 years since I've been back.
Okay. All right.
But
look, we are all invested now. We want you to go
It may
back.
be time. I need to go back and check it out again.
Your dad lives there.
He does.
I mean, I know that. I read the article. Right. Because you get to see him when you fly down there.
Right.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's just a pleasure. I'm going to have Susan on here
to
do the caregiver, the caretaker, because that's a different story that people need to hear as well.
Yeah.
A story of hope.
It helps them too.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to have all this information in the show notes, and gosh, hopefully we've inspired you to give, and it'll come back to you in triple fold for sure. So everyone, thank you again. And you know what I say every single week. Thank you for being here, and keep being fabulous.